I mean, I remember when there were great hopes for the European Union, and so let me lay out some of those. The hope was, it's kind of analogous in a way to the hope that if we brought China into the capitalist economic system, that would produce a liberalization in political ideology in China, a freeing. And you can understand that was a plausible hope. And it's certainly the case that the Chinese economy has grown dramatically and the cost of certain consumer goods have plummeted. The working class has paid a price for that. And absolute privation in many ways has been drastically limited in China, so it wasn't a complete failure, but the idea that it would liberalize China has turned out to be like, that just didn't happen even a little bit. So when the EU was formed, it was a thrill, I suppose, to some degree, that it became radically easy to move between countries without the inconvenience of passports and border guards and so forth. And the hope as well would be that the toxic elements of nationalism, such as they were, which had seemed to tear Europe apart multiple times, would be radically ameliorated, and that Europe could unite. That would raise the poorer countries out of their penury and produce an economy, I suppose, that would be equivalent in some ways to the United States. That was the hope. And the consequence was, and this is why the UK left, the consequence was really the elimination of intermediary political structures and the creation of a super organism in Brussels. I've been to Brussels, to the home of the EU. The building that enterprise is housed in is a monstrosity of cataclysmic foolishness. It's like the world's biggest and ugliest, badly designed airport. Tiny offices. I've got a comical story for you. I was there 3 years ago, maybe, speaking to another far-right politician from Eastern Europe, Romania, I think. And he had this tiny little office. And while I was there, the environmental police came into his office and adjusted his thermostat, right, so that he couldn't keep it cool fundamentally because of the green requirements. And there wasn't a damn thing he could do about it. And, I've talked to Bjorn Lomborg about thermostat adjustments and the fact that they're deadly, essentially, especially to elderly people, especially in the winter. But I thought it was so telling that we had gone to this staggeringly hideous monstrosity of a building. It was just a rat's maze inside. There was I don't know how you would ever orient yourself inside that building. It's gargantuan. And then to speak with this elected official who was powerless. Now, he wasn't happy about this, by the way, but who was powerless to adjust his own thermostat. I thought, that's pretty much exactly it. So you got a radically centralized Europe where the distance between the citizens and the government grew to like slave tyrant proportions. And so a hyper elite with disenfranchised people, that's what it looks like to me. And so, I don't know, maybe we should start by making a case for the European Union. I mean, if you had to play devil's advocate and you looked at what's happened in Europe over the last 20 years, do you think there's been advantages to the European project? I mean, the UK certainly decided no and decided to go their own way, which I think all things considered was a good idea. And then they went and elected a Labour government. So, that's a catastrophe. But tell me what you think of, you intimated your displeasure with the European Union and the euro. So why don't you lay out why and give the devil his due too?
Well, when it started out, it was a really good idea, actually. And how did it start out? Well, it started out that the European countries decided to form a trade union, kind of, So there was called the European Economic Union. And that was pretty much it. They were just, seeing how can we support each other, and we'll get rid of tariffs and everything to
Eliminate
kind of
trade barriers.
liberalize, how we trade among each other. But that was it. That was the whole purpose of getting together. At least so we were told. I'm pretty convinced at this point it was the idea all along to gradually upgrade this whole monstrum, you said it correctly, into this supranational kind of government, pretty much. But that was legitimate back then, and it worked. It was a good idea. But like I said, then they started evolving from there, and they sovereign rights were relinquished. In the beginning, it was just, things that kind of made sense. Let's invest in a common kind of external border protection, that type of thing, right? But now we are at a point where the peoples of Europe are no longer sovereign. They are no longer deciding their own political fate. And if they try to do so, as we have seen in Romania just recently, they just go ahead and annul an election. And to this day, they have not brought up any substantial evidence for their claim that Călin Ceausescu was apparently allegedly financed somehow by Russia or whatever.
Just like Trump.
Exactly. So they just claimed that was enough to just annul the election. And not only that, but bar him from running again. And he would have absolutely won the elections. So they barred him. So
they tried similar shenanigans, let's say, with Marine Le Pen.
Oh, of course.
Really.
Oh, absolutely.
Another far right.
So they're not even hiding anymore, right? They're not even hiding it anymore. So, but, the question really is, I'm speaking about, how democratic principles are being abolished pretty much across the board throughout every single Western democracy. And it's a power grab. The question, or begs the question, and especially people that are more left-leaning always ask me this, but why would the sovereign government of a country, let's say Germany, voluntarily relinquish their power to this supranational organization called EU? Well, it's very simple. The agenda they are trying to implement, all of the policies they're trying to implement, they wouldn't get away with that in a democracy. They wouldn't get away with that in terms of if the people saw, wait a minute, that government just is trying to do this, then we will no longer elect them. But what if they had a way of blaming someone else for that? And that's exactly how this play is working out here.
What policies are you speaking of specifically?
For example, the climate change policy.
The net zero policies.
Exactly, the whole transgender ideology. I mean, these are all things that they want to implement. So, but they would no longer they wouldn't get reelected if they advocated for these things. But now, having the EU institutions, it's pretty much providing them with plausible deniability. Now the elected government in Berlin can tell the Germans, well, we wouldn't have done that to you. We would not have passed this, but there's nothing we can do. It's coming from Berlin, from Brussels.
Right, and when national parties, I've seen this in the Netherlands, when national parties try to move in a direction that the Brussels elite do not approve of, then often environmental groups, the Greens in particular, take them to court and frequently win, right? And so the activist types have got an appeal to a centralized authority that can supersede national sovereignty, and that frequently does.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
When I saw I think it was Keir Starmer, if I remember correctly, who made some denigrating comments about Westminster not so long ago, it's probably a few years, pointing out that the real seat of power and the real decision-making authority rests with these supranational organizations like the WEF and the EU. And so it also seems to me to be the case that politicians whose ambition knows no bounds have their eye on the ultimate prize. And if that means sacrificing local or national interests, then so be it.